Welcome back to the Dark Reading News Desk here at RSA 2023. Terry Sweeney here with Dark Reading, and joining me now is Duncan Greatwood, CEO of Xage Security. Duncan, thanks for joining us on the Dark Reading News Desk today.
Great pleasure.
Cyber attacks are trending up on critical infrastructure since the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack just a few years ago. Why do we see this trend continuing, and can you just address some of the underlying issues?
Sure. So I think there was some good news with the Colonial Pipeline attack, which was that it alerted a lot of people to the cyber risks that they were running. But the bad news, it also alerted the attackers to the vulnerabilities that existed in critical infrastructure that perhaps hadn't been so visible before. And those vulnerabilities, unfortunately, are pretty legion. You have very common attack patterns that happen over and over again. And what's even worse is that when the attackers get inside of those networks, there's very little to stop them proliferating their attacks across the entire system. And that was the great worry in the Colonial Pipeline case, was that if the attackers got inside of one pumping station on the pipeline, maybe they'd be inside every pumping station on the pipeline.
Sure.
And every pipeline operator, every manufacturer, every transport company has got similar kinds of issues. And so the mix of legacy equipment with modern cyber risk is a very difficult one.
Xage handles security for both OT and IT systems and networks. Tell us a bit about some of the differences between these two realms where security is concerned. They don't necessarily map well to each other, do they?
Right. That's right. And so I think there's always that risk of people talking past each other. The IT security mindset meets the OT people. Sometimes we call it the difference between the carpeted office building and the concrete floor. In an operation, you're going to have these legacy systems, and you can't take them out of service, you can't patch them, you can't do anything to them, they just have to run forever. But you have to kind of overlay security on top of them rather than replacing them. You also have a need of more defense in depth inside of the operation. So you don't want to make it that the loss of one physical site results in the loss of all physical sites. You need layers, and you need independent protection of each layer. You also have to exist in environments where operations have to be continuous, even if you lose connectivity to the outside world.
Right.
There's scarcely an issue in a data center in the modern world, but if you're running a wind farm, then you may lose connection once in a while. And you still need your security to operate in that situation.
Xage has been talking a bit about the new multi-layer identity and access management innovations here at the RSA conference. What should viewers know about this?
So really this is another step forward in the defense in-depth strategy for operations. It's very common now for people to say, well, zero trust should be done in operations. That's kind of the next step for operational security. It's often reacted against by the people actually responsible for the operations, because they're saying, well, I can't do all those zero trust things, how am I even going to do that? And we sort of try and bring it down to practical reality of, well, zero trust means you're protecting each identity, which for an operational person means you're protecting each asset.
Okay.
And you're going to do that, and you're protecting each asset, each site, as I said, and in a layered way. And that means that you have to manage identity at each of those levels. That's why we call it multi-layer IAM, or identity and access management. And the ability to do that then means that rather than having these very vulnerable systems, you can have systems that have a natural login. You get single sign-on capability across many systems. You can impose multi-factor authentication, just again as you would in a financial application that was valuable to you. And so we're really applying these defense in-depth principles and zero trust principles, but again in that operational environment and to those applications that span operations, IT, cloud, just as you asked about before.
Okay, but zero trust itself on the OT side is not a heavier lift than it would be on the IT side?
I think it's a little bit of a different lift.
Okay.
It has to be zero trust that works the way you do if you're an operations person.